Hello and welcome to channel number 6 Vidik. We are offering a course on family law. Under this paper, we have interviewed Dr. Rama Srinivasan, who is an anthropologist. She studied runaway couples in Punjab and Haryana High Court, Chandigarh, who are seeking protection from the court, and they come from Punjab and Haryana. So she has studied how the runaway couples and the society perceives protection petition. It's a conflict between caste-based social norms and the constitutional rights granted to citizens in a democratic system. This is a conversation which is interdisciplinary in its approach. It can be particularly relevant for students of law, students of mass communication and journalism, students of sociology, and different disciplines of social sciences. Enjoy it. Hello and welcome to channel number 6 Vidik. I am Daljit Ami from EMRC Patiala. In Conversations, today we have with us Dr. Rama Srinivasan. She is an independent scholar based in Germany. She is a person of Indian origin. In her doctoral research, she has studied runaway couples from Punjab and Haryana, and her site of study was Punjab and Haryana High Court. Thereafter, she has shifted to another study, which is people from South Asia migrating to Europe, and she is studying their integration, different procedures and policies of immigration, and how do they get integrated in the society of Europe, whether they get integrated or not. So we will have conversation in two parts. In first part, we will discuss her study about runaway couples in Punjab and Haryana. Rama, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, Daljit, for this invitation, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, Rama, you are a student from Brown University studying anthropology, but brought you to Punjab and Haryana and study runaway couples. That too, an anthropologist sitting in Punjab and Haryana High Court, Chandigarh. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Daljit. First of all, I want to just state my preference for the terminology. I usually say eloping couples, which I find a little more relevant to what we are talking about. Yeah, I know that in popular culture they are often called runaway couples, but I find the usage of eloping couples more elegant.
Perfectly fine. I stand corrected.
Yeah, in order to explain how I came to this research topic, I would like to, of course, go back on a very long journey. In the first decade of the 21st century, I used to be a journalist, and at that point there was a lot of chatter about honor killings in Haryana. And of course, I was very uncomfortable with the term as well, because as a lot of other people have also stated, there is no honor in honor killings. So there had to be a better way of defining the phenomena and analyzing the phenomena, and B, there had to be a lot more work that needed to happen apart from those sensational news reports that came up whenever there was a sensational case of honor killing. So essentially what brought me to Haryana in the first place was an interest in representing Haryana as well as the phenomena of honor killing and do justice to the topic. As my interest kind of matured, I met a lot of people, including lawyers from Chandigarh, our dear friends Rajiv and Divya Godara. I realized that I wanted to work more not on deaths but lives, or at least the potential for life after employment. And what I did notice was also that there was a semi-positive story here of young people who made decisions for their lives and did everything they could to ensure that they could be together and they could live a reasonably good life after their elopement. And what interested me about the Punjab and Haryana High Court procedures was that it seemed to offer young couples a way to continue their lives after they had defied social norms and could go back to the community and live their lives together. At least that was the hope from with which they came to the Punjab and Haryana High Court. So what I did find fascinating about the procedures there was that there was this space of hope for a better life, of a life of their own choosing. So that is how I came to this PhD topic.
So how do the High Court proceedings and protection petitions became central to your study?
In 2012, I was here for 3 months doing observing court procedures, interacting with lawyers, interacting with couples. At that time, I was still thinking that when I do my my extended field work, because anthropology is between anything between 1 and 1.5 years of ethnographic research. At that time, I was still expecting that when I do my extended research, it would be in rural Haryana or small town Haryana. But in those 3 months, I realized that there was a lot going on in the court procedures. And what was also interesting was to see how it is routinized. Like every day there are like 50 to 60 such petitions, and there are in different courts of this high court, courtrooms of this high court, and I just was running between all these courtrooms, and I realized there was an entire life here that could be captured in a PhD study. There are very few ethnographic works based in courtrooms itself, especially courtrooms at a local level. At that time, legal anthropology books were about the International Criminal Court or like human rights, international human rights courts. There was not much that was happening. I knew like two or three examples from different parts of the world, and just one from India where there were ethnographic studies based in the courtroom and what was happening, and this kind of parallel infrastructure that had come up to support eloping couples. And I thought that this was under researched, and courtrooms itself as a space was under research. So I thought it would be good to actually switch my plans. So I ended up doing only 3 months or 4 months in rural Haryana, and then spending the maximum amount of time in my extended field work in the courtrooms. I hope I understand. I answered your question.
Yeah, so it incited another question, which is I'm keen to understand the transition from an ethnographer trying to find a site in rural Haryana and then shifting to a court in urban space. So I just want you to elaborate about this transition, and was there some common thread or threads?
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to, of course, define the parameters of my research. What is it exactly that I was going to research? What I was going to research, I realized, was that eloping couples were litigating, they were filing petitions for the protection of their life and liberty, and this afforded them an opportunity to go back and live their lives as a couple back in rural Haryana. And once I defined that, I thought that the best place to meet such couples, the best place to interact with the couples and to get the best quality of data was at the High Court itself. And if one is tracking such petitions in the High Court on an everyday basis, 50 to 60, I can't be in every courtroom every day, but if it's 50 to 60, I was able to at least sit through 15 such petitions and interact with at least 2 or 3 couples, interview them in the courtroom premises on an everyday basis. And what I did realize that most of them were not from any urban background. Most of the couples there were from a rural background. They came from quite far away sometimes, and they were not, I mean, although they had come to Chandigarh, they had probably never been to an urban area themselves. So in that sense, if you think of the people themselves as sites, ethnographic sites, then I was still studying rural Haryana in some ways. Of course, their presence in an urban site, in a place like Punjab and Haryana High Court, you have to factor in the surroundings. But in a sense, I was still researching rural Haryana when I was located in the Punjab and Haryana High Court.
That's interesting journey. There are continuities and then there are new elements to it. Elements to it. So once the court became central as site of study, the law, the legal processes come into the center of the whole things. Most of the time when there are news items in the media about eloping couples, they are about violence, they are about disagreements of the parents, they are about the dictates of the panchayat. So there is another space which is courtroom where the negotiation is taking place. So how do you reconcile these kind of negotiating space at social level or at legal level? Was there some kind of interaction or was there interest in both the navigation spaces?
Yes. As I had mentioned earlier, I had also done 4 months, 3 months in the beginning, and then like half a month twice over later, also in rural Haryana, because I wanted to also know what people in rural Haryana thought about such couples who had visited the High Court. So I was exposed to different kinds of negotiations, and actually the whole research in some ways was about how couples and the communities themselves negotiate these new realities, negotiate this new procedure which had become so popular in this region. I mean, if in order to answer your question, I could go back to maybe some theoretical framework.
Yeah, sure.
So legal pluralism is, of course, a very popular field of study world over, and within legal anthropology itself, it is it does study how people negotiate different legal and customary norms when there are different legal frameworks to work with. What is it that people follow? What are the rules people follow? But also, what are the rules that they pick and choose of what is works best for them? And like legal anthropologist Sally Mary, who is now sadly passed away, she would say that when there is a conflict, the legal order of the state will always triumph the legal order of the society. I mean, in the situation of India, we could probably debate whether this is always true, because the state agents, including judges, are also sometimes they work like patriarchs and want to
They
reinforce
follow the social order more.
They want to reinforce kinship and social norms more. But I think because I did a study which was 3 months once and then more than 1 year later in the High Court, what I can say, I think with authority, is that by and large most judges were able to upload the constitutional provisions over the social procedures. I have to add a caveat that this research was done between 2012 and 2018. We know there have been a lot more contestations, especially with the phenomena of love jihad and everything. So we will have to reassess some of these things. But in my research, I can say with overall confidence that even when the judges struggled with the idea of elopement, the idea of couples making choices that defied social norms, eventually they were able to upload the constitutional law. There would be judges, of course, who would ask demeaning questions of the couples. They'll be like, रीति रिवाज सब भूल गए क्या and all, and in the end they would grant the protection petition anyway, and even the same judges would say, but protection of life and liberty is an article of the constitution that cannot be denied no matter what the situation is. So I think that in my research, by and large, the legal order of the state had prevailed.
Okay. I really appreciate that, saying that I can say this with authority and then putting caveat on it that the study is confined to some period. I really appreciate that. So I'll just take you back a bit. So the question, the very issue of eloping couple have attracted attention of sociologists, political scientists, and from other disciplines as well, and particularly the political community, the politicians. So there are statements on record when you see a politician, a minister, or even a chief minister saying that I am a custodian of law, but simultaneously I am a custodian of social norm as well. दस्तूर नाम की भी कोई चीज़ होती है. So what kind of reference points were the studies done by political scientists, sociologists, and even journalists?
Mostly this topic I don't think has been studied so widely by political scientists. Pratiksha Bakshi maybe, but she works more with rape laws. A lot of work has been done by journalists who have also written books.
Dogra,
they have written books as well. What I noticed from those journalistic accounts is that a lot of people...
So they were primarily case studies.
They were case studies. Of course, Manoj and Babli story, which Chandrasutta Dogra wrote about, was one of the most high-profile cases. And that was the one I was referring to when I said that in the 21st century there was a lot of chatter about those books. But for me, what was important was to study the patterns, to study what was happening in the society, that there were so many elopements and there were also some people who were ready to murder for the sake of honor. So for me, the interest was more on what are the social transformations that are leading people. I mean, people have been having courtships forever, but what is it in this moment that people are ready to imagine a different future, that the courtship could lead to marriage, and there could be a mechanism by which they will be protected. What I did learn from journalists who had written on this work was that many of the politicians who who were conveniently located near an honor killing, where mostly they were aspiring politicians who saw a case of intercaste marriage or an intra-gota marriage as like a big ticket towards their political future. A lot of them who claim to be representatives of Khap Panchayats are now in political parties themselves. So this you see today in the case of all the claims of love jihad also. There is always somebody who is aspiring to hit the limelight with a high profile case if they can find one. But thankfully my journalism days are behind me, and I'm more interested in what is happening in the background than what is happening in the mainstream political sphere. One thing that I would say that is different about when I started in the early 21st century is when somebody like Naveen Jindal would go and meet Khap leaders, the mainstream television would make a big fuss about it. Then they would ask, why is a young politician, I mean, he was young then, why would a young politician meet such regressive elements? Today, if you see television media, you would see that they themselves behave like Khaps. The television studios themselves behave like Khap. So that shift has happened between the mainstream media in the beginning of 21st century behaving more like pretending to be more progressive rather, and now they have just kind of like given up of trying to pretend to be progressive, and they empower the most regressive voices in society. So that is something that I can say, like in this almost 20-year journey that I have
So
been
that
through.
would have been another interesting topic to talk about, but I'll just get back to the basic topic. You talked about that you are more interested in the background. So the court in itself is a background to all the happenings, all the thinking, all the negotiations happening around eloping couples. So what was surprising or what was new for you when you were attending the court hearings and meeting lawyers and eloping couples and other people, stakeholders?
Okay, so if I kind of repurpose your question to
Sure.
my advantage, I would
sure.
say that when I first went for only a 3-month stint at the courtroom, I thought what I found very interesting was that the court order would always say, while not commenting on the validity of the marriage, and the judges would also sometimes in the courtroom say, we are not concerned with the validity of the marriage, but we grant protection which cannot be denied. But when the couples came out, they would say, we have gotten married in the court, and that is explicitly what the court order does not say. But couples still believe that they have gotten married in the courtrooms, and that was for me a very interesting contradiction, and I misanalyzed it in the beginning. I thought that the couples were misinterpreting the court order to their advantage, but as I studied the topic more.
So just restate so that I understand it clearly. So they were granted protection.
They were granted protection, but the court order.
And they assumed that it is court marriage.
Yes, also even though the judges say.
Am I right when I
exactly, they understood and they insist that it is a court marriage, and the judges explicitly say we are not going into the validity of this marriage. But the
so when the court say that we are not going into the validity, what is the document or the evidence produced that we are married couple? Is there some religious ritual?
They have a certificate from the priest, some kind of paperwork from the priest, and they have photographs from from the ceremony.
Okay.
So most of these ceremonies happen in some temple in Chandigarh or Panchkula. So the couples elope from there, then they get married in a temple or in Panchkula or Chandigarh, and then they reach the High Court.
Okay.
And that's the evidence they produce. And the judges actually very carefully look at the photographs and what the priests have submitted. But then they would also say that we are not at the position to say anything about this the validity of the marriage, and I agree with them to a certain extent. You don't know what are the factors. Is there a case of bigamy? Is there, like, the judges don't know the background of the couples.
Or even that is not a point for consideration.
It is not a point for consideration with a protection petition, which is only concerned with life and liberty. But the judges would definitely peruse the documentation easily, very carefully. But of course they are not in the position to determine whether it's a valid marriage or not. But one thing, that even if it's not a valid marriage, these people are allowed to be together if they're adults and do what they want with their lives. So that, for me, the big shift was when I stopped thinking of it as a deliberate misunderstanding on part of the couples. Because when I analyzed this further, when I did more research, when I talked to people in rural Haryana, I realized that those people were also saying, even if they said we are completely against love marriage, we are completely against elopements, they would also say, but those couples visited the High Court, and now we have to accept, even if we don't want to. They got married in the High Court, so now we will have to acknowledge that they have been married, even if we don't agree with their decision. So when I looked at it and I said the couples believe that they have had a court marriage,
which can help them convince their parents or convince a section of the society which is important for them.
Society believes they have had a court marriage. The police officers who have received complaints of kidnapping and rape charges against the groom, they believe that the couple have gotten married. The couple has gotten married in the High Court. If everybody believes, that is exactly what marriage is, right? In social setting, a social setting, a wedding is just a wedding till the entire society accepts that it's a marriage. So a marriage, it has to, when the society acknowledges that it's a marriage, then it's a marriage. And terminology is interesting from a legal standpoint, but ultimately I am an anthropologist and I am not a lawyer. So a lawyer
I see how an anthropologist works. You have explained a very complicated scenario in a very simple terms. Thank you very much for that. So now we will go into the end part of this episode. So what are your primary findings out of this study? If I may ask this.
I mean, I guess there are a lot of interesting aspects to this study, but if I was to give a holistic picture of what I believe is happening in this region, and I include Punjab, I guess, also into it, is that the whole scale transformation of rural Haryana and Punjab, especially of what was primarily an agrarian economy, it just offers a scenario where marriages cannot be arranged or solemnized, matched. People cannot be matched in the ways that they used to be. If I again get very like classic kinship anthropology terms, a marriage has to serve the political economy. It has to keep the systems in place, of reciprocity, of social networks in place. what somebody like Prem Chaudhary, for example, wrote is that marriage is the means of social production of how agricultural land ownership and resources would be distributed and redistributed into the next generation. It has to be consolidation, the prosperity gained from agricultural land has to be consolidated within very narrowly defined caste networks. But when there is an agrarian crisis, and a lot of people, young people especially, but a lot of people in general are looking to a post-agrarian future. For young people, there is nothing in agriculture to tie them down. Marriages cannot be arranged and thought of in the same ways, because it no longer serves the political economy to arrange the marriage between two people the way it used to be. So my argument would be that eloping couples are not an aberration, but they are actually the reaction to a situation that this does not make sense for us anymore, and it will not secure our future to be matched with people we were traditionally matched with. So these are people who are not consciously but definitely moving towards a future, not consciously but moving towards a future where there will be a new economy, there will be new political systems where these old norms will no longer be viable. So that would be my conclusion.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rama, for explaining this complicated topic to us. We will join you again for the next episode. So Rama explained her study, her methodology, the framework, and the findings about from her study that she did in Punjab and Haryana High Court. I hope it will be beneficial for the listeners, for the learners from across disciplines. Thank you very much for joining us.